and this is your first time, you'll notice a lot of changes and improvements to this place. The Talon Tough Tools grid, as we said earlier, the 5th time Lowndes has been on pole, and what a mouth-watering situation that is. Lowndes, Ambrose on the front row. They've had their differences this year, but they'll race hard today. HSV dealer team in good shape, and strangely enough, Mark Scaife out of the top 10, and he wasn't pleased about that. That was a source of frustration. And Paul Wheel, in his farewell drive in V8 Supercars, one of his best qualifyings of the year, just narrowly missing the top 10. Neil, how do you see this one shaking out? I don't think I've ever heard so much discussion about a single race meeting than this weekend. People's opinions on Ingle, people's opinions on Lowndes, and whether any of the outsiders have a shot.
The fascinating thing is that we've crunched 1,001 scenarios of what may or may not happen, and as you quite rightly point out, everybody has an opinion. Craig's doing all that he has to do. He's on pole position. We know that Russell has got to be somewhere about where he is or better as we cycle through the cars that'll carry onboard cameras for us in our coverage today. The problem for Russell is that he's back in that slightly vulnerable area. He's got to do the best he can, manage what he's got, but he cannot afford a did not finish result. That is the thing that would kill him. And it's been the hallmark of his championship so far that he's finished every race that he started in. Darryl?
I don't know if it's improved during this warm-up lap for Greg Murphy or not, but he came across on the radio just before to his crew saying the clutch has got no play in it. It's like a light switch. It's either on or off, and this will be a difficult start for him if that's the case.
Managing tyres in this race is going to be critical. There's a compulsory pit stop for tyres. The window for the opportunity to change those tyres comes on lap 5, and it closes on lap 16 of this 23-lap race. 100 kilometres. Field still streaming in. Typically at Phillip Island, Lee, you'll lose anywhere between 1 to 2 seconds per lap once you take the edge off your tyre performance here. So what we saw in qualifying will not reflect the kind of pace that they'll show in the race, and that's very important.
The ambient temperature has gone up since then too, Neil. Currently 21 degrees. On track it is 31. Most people talking about changing the tyres down the working side of the car. Some debating about changing rears.
That's been one of the interesting strategical points for the crews this year. Do you go down one side? Do you go just rears? And various teams have had mixed results with which way they have gone. Will it be Lowndes? Will it be Ambrose? Or can one of the Holden gang get ahead of these boys? Ford has been strong here this weekend. And an improvement from Ford Performance Racing's Jason Bright. It's the final race meeting of the year. And Lowndes is still in with a shot. And he gets a beautiful jump.
Well, I think Tander got away very well too, or was it Rick Kelly? But Lowndes jumping nicely.
Whoa, almost contact there. Right around the outside went Garth Tander. Beautiful start from the Symmons Plains winner, and Mark Scaife is off. Scaife is on the grass.
And he'll have to be careful how he rejoins here. Right to the very back of the pack. Stone last.
What a dynamic start from Garth Tander. He is picking up where he left off at Symmons Plains. And he's taken Lowndes and Ambrose by surprise.
Trouble.
That looks like Glenn Seaton. It is Seaton. And in his final drive for Dick Johnson Racing this weekend, he has been replaced by Will Davison.
Someone turned him.
Okay, mate, we've seen it.
A bit of aggravation. It's normal for there to be nose-to-tail contact into the turn 4 hairpin on the first lap. Just the very nature of the shape of the corner and the proximity of the cars down there, you very rarely get a clean start. Unfortunately for Glenn Seaton, he's been the one that's paid the price.
Not sure what the clarity was like on that radio transmission from Mark Scaife, but I've just been into the Holden Racing team bunker. They say it was contact with Paul Wheel, they believe, that set off that incident for Scaife down at turn 1.
By the time he toured the paddock and came back on, he wasn't last, as I pointed out, but next to last, so that's a shocker for him now. Makes it a hard weekend from that position. Look at the flutter on the back of the bonnet on Lowndes' car. Turbulence in the air as the cars approach 280 Ks to turn 1. They hover around 200 odd here. Build up again to about 210 as they approach turn 2. And then it's down to about 120 Ks. And then building up in this huge run down through turn 3 to 250 Ks. And already Ambrose is torturing the back of Lowndes.
Zinger replay of the start, and look at Tander. He had so much speed going on from the line. Off the line, he went one way, then the other, and just drove around the outside of Craig Lowndes.
And Craig actually had to get on the dirt a little on the inside then to avoid any contact and look further back in the pack as Mark Scaife wanders off the road. Didn't quite see what triggered that, and then he rejoins in 32nd position.
Glenn Seaton buried in the pack, and that one was a little difficult to see. David Bernard facing the wrong way.
It's over at Siberia, which is turn 5, and looks like there's a little bit of damage in the B-pillar area on that car as well.
Positions unchanged at the front. Tander, Lowndes, Ambrose, 1, 2, 3. Murphy went backwards off the line, and Paul Dumbrell jumped forward several positions to be in the top 10 in 8th. Russell Ingles gained a position. He's 7th last time round.
Had a quick comment from Marcus Ambrose before the start of this race, and he said it's going to be interesting to see how these cars perform with their tyres over this race duration, because he said we've not done a lot of laps around here with a big load of fuel on board, and it could be interesting.
Wow, Lowndes got a little loose there through turn 1 as he tries to raise the pressure on Garth Tander.
He is just starting to close that margin a little here at turn 2. They're carrying, just on the question of fuel, about 85 to 90 odd litres of fuel for the start of this race. So the cars are quite heavy at the moment. And let's watch Lowndes here and see whether he has a look down the inside. And the thing that they do have to be careful of when they're in that heavier fuel condition is flat spotting tyres. And a couple of areas around this track where you really are stuck into the brake pedal, you've got a lot of weight on and the tyres are cool, you can risk some damage. There's Ingle.
Contact there between Kelly and Dumbrell, and forces him wide. It looked like Kelly was able to get through. That's Steve Owen in trouble with that, with Craig Baird.
And Ingle, incidentally, in 7th. Now 34.8, the fastest lap so far, Garth Tander. Lowndes all but matched the same lap speed. 0.3 was the margin on the last lap. It's Tander, Lowndes, Ambrose, Bright, Kelly, Richards, Ingle, Dumbrell, Todd Kelly, Greg Murphy, 10th.
One driver to go backwards dramatically from the start was Jamie Whincup. After doing so well to be in the top 10 shootout, he slipped to 14th, and Dumbrell has come from 14th to 8th. Great work on the opening couple of laps. Zinger replay. This is the Bernard incident with David Brabham. And these two continuing this bit of a stoush because they got together at Simmons Plains. Different angle, and this will be the Craig Baird. And Baird went all by himself, and that looks like Cam McConville mixing it up there with Steve Owen.
In the break between the shootout and this race, I had a good chat with Matt Nilsson, one of the engineers from the HSV dealer team. He said they were leaving Garth Tander's car alone. They did a good race run here recently in testing, and one of the key things they were able to learn just in terms of the tyre performance was ways that he could keep the car fast in the early part of this race just by making bar adjustments and the like. So Tander felt very, very confident in this car, the Tasmanian round winner going into this race.
And Greg, for all the Holdens that were at that test here at Phillip Island, Tander was the fastest. Jason Bright in his Cat Ford remains in 4th ahead of Rick Kelly and Stephen Richards.
Garth opened the margin out to nearly half a second on that lap. 34.9 for him, 35 even for both Craig Lowndes and Marcus Ambrose. Here's Jason Bright in 4th, 34.8 on that lap for Jason. He's just lost touch a little with that leading group, but he'll be encouraged to see that he's so close. Here's Rick. Now the interesting thing is, very early days, folks, but if they stay as they are with Ingle in 7th and Lowndes in 2nd, that narrows the margin by a further 10 points to just 39 points between the two key drivers at the front of the championship.
You know, it wasn't that long ago, somewhere back around like Queensland Raceway, that 280-kilometre event up there, that Lowndes was something like 254 points behind the series leader, which was then Marcus Ambrose. How things change in a handful of races and a handful of rounds.
Now the pit window is opened. Marcus Ambrose, the fastest split at the first sector, 28.2. Everything's coming up to temp, coming up to pressure, tyres are normalising. The drivers have got a feel for the conditions on the road, which will have changed since earlier today. Temperatures come up, as Greg pointed out earlier. The wind's still generally from the same southwesterly direction. But the tyres will gradually begin to peak and just go away a little for absolute performance. Lowndes has narrowed the margin slightly on this lap.
Something happened to Ambrose there because he's dropped back considerably.
34.6, fastest lap of the race, Craig Lowndes.
There is a fairly healthy margin between second and third. Now Lowndes goes wide again. He's done that several times on the exit of turn 1.
Ingles on the radio and animated. I didn't pick up the message, but Tander will come in this lap. Heard the call from his engineer, Matt Nilsson. 0.25 is the margin between Tander and Lowndes as they went through the control line. This is the turn 4 braking approach, and Garth's just easing a little across to the right, and Ingle will come in on this lap. Oh, Garth just a little offline on the exit, so look for Ingle to come in as well.
What was he being animated about? Was he being roughed up a little bit, or?
I didn't catch it all.
It was, I could see, I remember on one of our previous camera shots, Todd Kelly had made a considerable amount of ground up on Ingle, so whether they were having a bit of a stoush for position, Ingle maintains 7th, Todd Kelly behind him
There he is.
in 8th, and Murphy.
He's between two Holdens of Stephen Richards and Todd Kelly. Todd's got the lights ablaze. It might simply have been communication regarding the pit stop. They have confirmed that they will bring him in this lap. See, Stephen lost a little bit of ground with understeer across the top of Lukey Heights. Another confirmation to Russell Ingle to pit this lap. So he's got to peel off, and you'll see when they come in, the engagement line for the 40 km/h pit lane speed limit here is very, very early. Here he is, peels off the racetrack, and right here is the control line. And it's an eternity to where the Stone Brothers Racing pit is, which is right at the southern end of the pit lane.
They are the very last pit box.
Now they'll ask him if he wants any changes. He's asking for rears. So a lot of the Queensland teams are doing rears, not the working side. When we call it the working side, around this track, that's the right-hand tyres, front and rear. So Russell's calling for rears only.
Garth Tander is in as well. And both these organisations are polished performers in pit stops.
HSV dealer team entry doing rears as well. Remember, they've got a new deal for next year with Toll, with support from Toll Racing. Ingle in, Brabham in. Brabham was involved in that thing with Bernard before. This is on board Russell Ingle's car. Critical stop for that team.
Watch your car coming down. 100% clear, go mate.
And they'll reset to prepare for Ambrose's stop. And that's Brabham leaving.
Paul Forgy just telling Marcus it's his call. Tell us what you want to do. You've got a little bit of free air at the moment. Do you want to use it, or do you want to pit?
Oh.
More trouble down at the hairpin.
Matthew White in the Fujitsu Ford. Spins it round. He's stalled.
Is the car okay? Did you get pushed off?
Lowndes in this lap.
It's been a wild old start to this one.
A number of people that went off this morning, and Ambrose is going with them.
Top 2 in, Lowndes and Ambrose. Marcus has overshot! Marcus has overshot that 40 km/h line and almost went into the rear of...
You're right behind Lowndes.
Right behind him, all right. He
was
nearly
nearly in with
passed
him.
him. He was off on the grass. Here it is again. Watch as Craig slows down, and Ambrose has to dive to the right to avoid slamming into the back of it.
Is there going to be more of that? You reckon we'll hear more on that?
Well, certainly
Okay, mate, where you go?
they'll look at that data, no doubt. Oh,
Okay.
slow stop then
Watch
for
your
Lowndes to
speed,
get
turn off your
away.
lights.
Slow stop, I reckon.
Ambrose in just the rear tyres, and interesting we talk about the working side now. Ambrose out in front of
Great work,
Lowndes, so
mate.
he
You got
does
Lowndes.
make
Get
time
on
up
it.
there. And also they're saying down the working side initially, Neil, when they get back out on the track, the car balance is really weird if they go down that one side.
And I've already heard Tim Schenken, the race director, ask for officials to look at that incident with Marcus Ambrose almost climbing over the top of Craig Lowndes on the pit lane entry. So they'll need to look at that. They'll study the vision.
Stand
They'll
behind
take
you,
the
do all
on-board
in your
data out of
power.
the cars as well, Greg.
One of the wheel nuts, in fact, off Glenn Seaton's car has rolled into the fast lane, so no doubt the officials will be onto that. I can tell you that Rick Kelly stopped, by contrast to Garth Tander. They had some trouble getting the left rear wheel nut off his car. It was a 7-second stop. Tander's, to me, looked like a sub-4-second stop. That was brilliant work by the HSV dealer team.
And look at this, these guys going at it. Lowndes and Tander. Tander's all over the back of Craig Lowndes. So Ambrose and Lowndes have beaten Tander out.
And they've got a car in between them, Matthew White, that is in between Marcus and Craig. he'll be shown the blue flag.
Yeah, this is allowing Ambrose to skip away. But will there be more about that overshoot on pit entry from Marcus Ambrose?
Glenn Seaton is going to be black flagged for that pit lane infringement that Greg told us about with the wheel nut sailing down the fast lane. So not only was it a shocking stop by DJR, but he's going to have to take a penalty.
Contact there between Bright and Murphy.
You feel it, drop, go.
Bright left his box. And whether he was unsighted, but it looked like there was contact between the Cat Ford and the Super Cheap Commodore.
It's a very, well, you can see from these shots, it's a very narrow lane. And there's damage on the front right-hand corner, so you're spot on there, Lee. It's dislodged the splitter, the front spoiler on that car, and that will end what has been a great run so far this weekend for the FPR Cat boys.
It has too, Neil, and also lucky that the air hoses nearly got caught around the rear wing of that car and pulled the whole gantry down, so they got away with that one lightly.
The point I was going to make is that we don't have the full width fast lane, manoeuvring lane and pit lane working area here, and that's one of the reasons why it gets a bit frantic, as we've seen.
So, what a stop from the Pertec boys at Stone Brothers Racing to get their man out, not only ahead of Craig Lowndes, but Garth Tander. That was super stuff. Ambrose is down in 12th, but none of the guys in front, obviously, have stopped for their compulsory. That's Dumbrell.
Stephen Richards was leading. He's just come in this lap, so it leaves Dumbrell, Radisic, Ellery, Whincup at the top of the order. And already we're seeing people lapping in 1 minute 37s, 1 minute 36s. You know, Dumbrell has just done a 37.5. That's how much the speed's bled away.
Lowndes is putting in some pretty nifty times and is starting to eat into that margin between he and Marcus Ambrose.
Lap 9. Okay.
For Marcus, since we were at Simmons Plains, he has announced that he does have a contract to drive in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, which is like the third tier of NASCAR. There is Nextel Cup, then the Busch Series, and then the trucks, which are like the equivalent of us to Utes or pickup trucks, and it's big time. And he's driving for Wood Brothers ST Motorsport, so great news for him.
Phil Keed has just called Jason Bright in to address the problem with that front spoiler on the Cat car. So Jason Bright in this lap.
Here is Jason Bright. Oh, slight contact between he and Rick Kelly as Kelly goes round the outside at the hairpin. Richards is lining up for a shot as well.
Lee, I've just spoken to some of the officials here in pit lane regarding the pit entry incident for Ambrose on Lowndes. They are looking at this matter. There will be no decision made during this race. It'll be a post-race investigation, but it is being looked at.
And they'll want to see the vision out of the cars that the Tiga cameras get, and also, no doubt, interrogate the data that's recorded in the car before they make a judgment on that. So it's one of those deals where you need more facts.
I guess you could look at it from one point and say it was an error, but there was no advantage gained, was there?
You could say that, but sometimes that's not how they adjudicate those things.
As we know.
You can see that coming. It started at the exit of the final corner and it brewed all the way down the straight. Three guys trying to argue over the same piece of real estate, and here's the zinger replay. Watch this. Remember that Bright is holding the pack up with the problem with the front of the car. Todd Kelly and Stephen Richards argue, and then they start to rub panels, and through the dust you don't see it, but ultimately both of them end up off the road, and this shot will tell more of the story.
And as a result, look who's immediately behind. Russell Ingall says, thank you, fellas. I'll take 2 bonus points. 2 bonus spots, I should say.
Yeah, not a clever move by either of those guys, but both of them, no doubt, 100% feel they're in the right.
And there it is, opens the pathway up for Russell Ingall. Meanwhile, the battle between the 2 Ford pilots, Ambrose and Lowndes. They are currently 6th and 7th in the order, but Dumbrell, Whincup, Morris, Owen Kelly and Craig Baird yet to complete their compulsory stop, and they have to do so within the next 4 laps.
It'll be interesting to see how that incident is adjudicated and whether or not nothing's done or there is action taken, because this will be a very similar set of arguments to those that were proposed at Bathurst, which is one guy's commanding racing room and the other guy's saying you're not at the B pillar. They'll both have very strong views on it, and these kinds of incidents that are becoming quite difficult to adjudicate on put real pressure on the investigating and prosecuting officer and the driving standards observer. We've watched that one with great curiosity.
Look at Lowndes, he's definitely got the pace. And this is Jason Bright, outside of turn 1.
Well, he figured out a way of getting rid of the front spoiler. Don't know whether that was quite out of the textbook, though. So the fact of the matter was that that car was disabled and it was slowing him down. He had been called to the pit and he must have felt that he needed to press on, but it's made the car understeer more because it's dislodged, and then it's gone under the front of the car when he's gone off the road.
What was that worth? 15, 20 grand, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, not quite that much, but I mean, in lost opportunities, absolutely.
This is the focal point, though. Ambrose Lowndes. The Pertec Ford, the better electrical Ford.
9 to go.
All this stuff, all this carry-on's good news for Russell Ingall.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah, okay.
those three guys, Jason Bright, Stephen Richards, Todd Kelly, were all ahead of him. So he's got 3 bonus spots just like that in the space of 2 laps.
Just further discussing these pressure incidents, neither driver in a series where a position is so critical wants to yield these days either, and that's one of the things that's also driving some of these incidents that seem very belligerent. It's you know, you're not going to be rewarded by your team in some instances for being seen to be the guy that backs off. But of course the problem is, the downside of that is that if you end up in the paddock and way out of contention, then that's no good and undesirable for the team and the sponsors too. So very tough times out there.
10 laps to go. The WPS team repairing Craig Baird's Falcon.
Watch for Lowndes. He's nearly in a position to have a nibble here at Marcus. Here we go. Here it is. It's on. Car number 24, Stephen Richards, is going to take a penalty for his part in the Todd Kelly incident down at turn 2.
Look at this now, though. Lowndes has not only caught him, is he about to get by him? He certainly had the superior speed.
They're just going back to it again, so now that answers the questions that I've been throwing up. The reason that Stephen Richards takes that penalty is they will feel, and I've obviously not spoken to Peter Wallerman, but they'll feel that he didn't provide racing room to Todd Kelly when they approached turn 2. So for all the thousands of emails of people expressing a viewpoint on what happened at Bathurst, this is what is being adjudicated now. The drivers have got to give some space.
Can Ambrose hang on?
Maybe Ambrose might be struggling a little more with that front right-hand tyre as well. You watch him through the fast turn onto the front straightaway, and some of the others, Lowndes runs in and carries a lot more speed initially through the turn, but Marcus props in the middle of the corner a lot of places, but gets good drive off.
Lowndes has got more speed. It's just a question of when. When your car begins to degrade around this track, it generally goes away at a fairly substantial rate and keeps going away. So Marcus might need to make a bar adjustment here or change the way in which he's driving the car. But he's sliding. See how much he's sliding the car? Craig will be grinning.
And Jason Bright and his Cat Ford are back in, the FPR team.
Here we go, has another look here. So that's the area that he's trying to apply some pressure. And shame for the Ford Performance crew. They would have started to salivate at the prospect of a strong result, but that little glitch in the pit lane has cost them.
Yeah, essentially he was in 4th place when all that went down.
Lowndes is under the rear wing of Ambrose now, so he'll get the benefit of the hole punched in the air by the Pertec car. Won't be able to do much about it down at turn 1. See the little puff of smoke of carbon out the exhaust on the gear change. Might be able to get in position at turn 4, the hairpin approach.
Ambrose is 3rd in the points. Lowndes is 2nd in the points. If anything were to go wrong for Russell Ingall, these two are ready to pounce. And Jamie Whincup is the sole remaining car on track yet to complete his compulsory stop. He has to do that within the next lap.
Watch for Lowndes. He'll have a look down the inside, but Marcus is a wake-up. Now he has a look. Oh, he's certainly got more grip available at the moment, Lowndes.
The battle of the blue oval, boys. It continues, and here's Stephen Richards serving that penalty.
And I was interested to see where Garth was, and we had a glimpse of him in that shot there, because he's just waiting and watching. That's him in the background. There's not that big a margin. And once Craig gets by, which I reckon he will, I think you'll find that Tander gets all over Ambrose as well. Watch for Lowndes again on the braking area off Lukey Heights. Here he is.
Goes for the move. Lowndes has got him. Contact.
He had to motocross it, but he got it done, and in the end, Marcus went, okay, it's yours. He made it hard, but in the end, they avoided an ugly scene.
Think about those bars when you get in the front straight.
And he's going to skip away. He'll just bolt now.
Lowndes in front.
Smart. He's having a look at the anti-roll bar controls in the car there, and Nat and Chili looking on, and they'll be pretty happy with Mr. Lowndes' work out there at the moment. So he's already opened up a half-second margin, and now we'll see whether or not Garth's got anything for Marcus. Just sliding that whisker too much in the Pertec entry, and this group of guys here will look at that between races and consider perhaps a small change for race 2 tomorrow.
That better electrical Ford has some power on board, and here comes Tander as well. Zinger replay. This is the pass for the lead.
And watch Craig. He has to actually get 2 wheels on the grass here, so the left wheels are where the right wheels would normally be. Bang! But he was well down the inside, and no damage done. Good move as Craig sneaks back down here on the replay. Would easily have got ugly, though, had it been another couple of inches. Been forced further to the right. He'd been in a bit of strife.
Up over Lukey Heights again. One of the signature points on this fabulous circuit. And Garth Tander and the HSV dealer team Commodores definitely gaining ground on Marcus Ambrose.
What I want to see now that the 2 lead drivers have unlocked themselves from that battle, is what their lap speed is, what their real lap speed is, and that'll tell you a little bit about what's going to come in the remaining laps.
Rick Kelly is 4th, Russell Ingall is 5th, and Greg Murphy has responded, and he's back up to 6th, ahead of Paul Radisich, Jamie Whincup, Steve Ellery, and Paul Dumbrell. That's the top 10.
35.3 for Craig, 35.8 for Ambrose, 35.9 for Tander. So Garth hasn't got the speed that we thought he might have, because there's certainly no reason why he'd have been delayed on that lap.
Updating you on a couple of other drivers, Mark Scaife, after being second last on the opening lap, is sitting in 16th position, so he's made some good progress. And Jason Barguana's having a reasonably strong drive in 14th, so he's in the top half of this field.
And that drive-through for Stephen Richards puts him back in 27th, incidentally, and he was, in mathematical terms, one of the contenders in the championship, but it was a possibility, but that's put paid to that notion.
Yep.
Not that he would realistically have considered that to be a possibility anyway, but certainly on paper it was doable.
Here's the points leader, Russell Ingall. And he's got Greg Murphy right behind.
See, that's a good solid spot for Russell to be in now. No nonsense kind of spot. The race has settled down. Black flag for car number 6, the Cat Ford, Jason Bright, for an infringement. And so that'll just add salt to that wound, because they've obviously been delayed in the pit while they repaired the front of the car.
Bright started the weekend the fastest guy. Yesterday's 2-hour practice session, he was on top and did well in qualifying, did well in the top 10 shootout, but it's all fallen away. Steve Ellery on screen there in the 88 Better Electrical Ford. It's his final weekend with that team. We know that Jamie Whincup's got his ride, and frustratingly for Steve Ellery, there is nothing on the horizon for next year. He's trying hard to secure a drive, but even spoke to his father Bruce the other day, bumped into him in the street here in Melbourne, and he said it may be over. He'll be having endurance drives, but he may not have something for the full-time season next year.
Hasn't Paul Wheel done a good job so far in this race? He missed out on the top 10 shootout by half a tenth. Best qualifying performance of the year. Right now he sits in position 10, and they made a slight change to that car that he felt would make the car nicer on its rear tyres as the race progressed. Special mention also for David Brabham and the Ford Performance Racing team. Brabham trying to sneak inside the top 10 at the moment, and was very encouraged by his recent test here with that outfit.
just on the subject of FPR and Jason Bright, he's down in 30th. And, more trouble here for Mark Scape and Paul Morris. And the reason for, we didn't clarify before, the reason for the Jason Bright drive-through penalty is the problem he had with Greg Murphy in the pit lane.
Scape's done a pretty nifty job to come from the back of the pack to 16th. He's driving hard.
5 laps to go, 5 to go.
In fact, make that 17th because Morris just stole 16th away from him. So the Sirame Commodore.
Simon Wills there in 44, making a return to the series this weekend, so I don't know why he's sitting there in that position. Sitting out there all on his own by the look of it.
So much going on at the moment, isn't there, with Anthony Tratt farewelling the series. The toll sponsorship's gone to HSV dealer team. Paul Wheel is going to focus on business next year. Question mark over Stephen Ellery. Whincup going to Triple Eight. Lots happening. Winterbottom going to FPR. Glenn Seaton out of a ride next year. That caused a lot of upheaval with the Glenn Seaton fans. They're not very pleased, but Dick Johnson Racing are quite excited at the prospect of having young Will Davison in the team next year.
I think we have the answer with Ambrose struggling, or why Lowndes got past him and has opened up such a big gap, and now Tander's all over the back of him. The team just had wheels out for Ambrose, and they said it's 4 laps to go, so he said he was going to hang out there. So obviously Marcus Ambrose with tyre issues.
They've just instructed Marcus to let Garth go if he has to, rather than end up off the road in a battle. So there he goes. He's left the room, and Garth goes through to second. So it took a little longer than we thought. And he has been closing the last couple of laps with pretty good speed. That last lap for Marcus was a shocker of 37.57. 35.4 was the last lap for Lowndes, and 36.3 for Tander. So Marcus is just hurting a bit because the car's sliding around, heating those rear tyres up too much, and that'll require a little bit more tweaking between races. But they'll also need to monitor the weather tomorrow before they make an absolute decision on what to do there.
Closing stages of this 100-kilometre event. We've got 2 140k races tomorrow to decide, to determine who will be the champion. Zinger replay of Stephen Richards just overshooting the hairpin.
Not a good afternoon for Stephen. Not a good afternoon for Mark Scaife. Not a good afternoon for Jason Bright. Great afternoon for Craig Lowndes. Going to grab 64 points on current target, and that's all you can do.
And there's Campbell Little, his race engineer, who's done a brilliant job this year. Craig and Campbell said to me that it took a little while for them to get to know each other, to learn each other, but now they've got their act together. It is brilliant. And reminding you that on Sunday the 4th of December, Triple Eight are having an all-Ford fan day. Craig Lowndes, Adam Macro and Jamie Whincup will be there. And Craig and Jamie will take 30 fans on hot laps. It's a free family day at Queensland Race Day with on-track entertainment. There's free kids rides. There's a band playing. And someone will walk away with a brand new Ford Fiesta. That's a free fan day for all Ford fans. Queensland Raceway, Sunday the 4th of December.
The margin between Craig and Russell in the points battle would be down to 41 points if things stay as they are at the moment, with Lowndes leading and Ingle in 5th.
It's all starting to build nicely for tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pressure is still far from being released on Russell Ingle, that's for sure. Lowndes loves this track. He's had a lot of success here over the years, both for Ford and Holden. And he continues that right here, right now. Last couple of laps of the island.
Great performance from David Brabham, 11th in the Ozjet Ford. And remember, he ran at Simmons Plains 2 weekends ago.
I spotted an interesting person in their pit at Simmons Plains, and he has remained in Australia. It's a guy called George Howard Chappell, who is actually David's boss overseas. He runs the Works Aston Martin sports car team. And I understand David Richards requested his presence here in Australia just to have a little bit of a look at what was going on in the FPR operation.
Well, they certainly had a difficult entry into the category in the last couple of years, and they're obviously aware of that. And there's a lot of pain involved when you don't get the success that you require in this business, and a lot of work's got to be done. So here's a little bit of contact between Stephen Johnson and Steve Owen on the exit of turn 4.
That was a friendly move over. I'm coming through. Second place, Garth Tander. Hasn't he finished the year on a strong high note? Really settled into this HSV dealer team nicely. And wait till you see the new colour scheme for this team for next year. The Toll colours. It's an orange and black paint scheme. Very striking.
Ellery's got a bit of pressure on the back of Radisich for 7th and 8th. Fastest man on the road at the moment is actually Russell Ingall. And Paul Radisich just a little defensive down the inside with Ellery right behind. And you've already detailed, Lee, that Steve Ellery's off at the end of this weekend, out of the Triple Eight race engineering seat, and a question mark as to where he slots back into the game, if at all.
Good drive from Paul Radisich. The Paul Morris Motorsport cars. He'll be pleased with that.
You know what's amazing is the, notwithstanding Garth Tander in second position, but the key Holden guys that test down here and do so much mileage over the course of the year, they're effectively nowhere in this race. It's amazing, and I think one of the problems for that, and we've seen it before, when you sometimes race at your test track, you think you've got a handle on all the possible answers setup-wise. I think it sometimes means that you lock in on stuff that you might not otherwise do, where other teams come with an open mind and more flexibility. Anyway, at the moment, it's all Craig Lowndes.
This is his teammate, though, Steve Ellery, and this is Simon Wills running into problems. He's had a bit of a tough weekend coming back into the V8 Supercar Championship series. This is your race leader on the final lap. He was beaten out of the pits by a faster stop from the Stone Brothers guys, but he has had good speed and a good car setup.
Notice the left-hand mirror's folded down a little on Craig's car there, and for years you could never convince him, no matter how hard you tried, and I tried, to put a left-hand mirror on the car, but someone at Triple Eight's obviously changed his mind.
You know when that got squashed over? When he came up the inside of Ambrose.
Some sort of electrical gremlin for Simon Wills, boys. It's been plaguing the team all weekend. Just spoke to Oscar Fiorinotto.
And there's Jason Bright, what could have been. He was running 4th. They had those issues, contact in pit lane, and I think we'll hear more about that. Will we hear more about the Ambrose situation? This guy certainly doesn't care, because he's fighting for a championship. He came into today 49 points behind Russell Ingall, and he has got maximum points here.
As if Marcus is adjudged to have done something wrong on that pit lane approach, that'll slot Rick Kelly up a spot, and of course Russell Ingall will go with him.
Fantastic.
Lowndes wins race 1 at Phillip Island and strengthens his chase for this championship.
Good job, Craig. Well done.
Brilliant stuff from the Better Electrical Ford man and the team. Tander gets second, Marcus Ambrose third, and Rick Kelly comes across the line for a strong 4th place. And the championship leader, there he is.
2-1, no, 2-1.
It's building nicely. The drama continues tomorrow. 2 140-kilometre events.
Fastest lap of the race was Craig Lowndes, 1:34.6, and officially had 2.8 seconds as a margin right at the end of the game.
And that's Craig's wife Natalie and daughter Chili. Marcus Ambrose, he was in the fight there for the majority of the time, but the car went away from him.
One of the things they've been able to do successfully, though, over the last few seasons is dial their cars. They seem to have a good handle on being able to adjust them, so I'm sure that they'll have a long, hard look at what they had in this race, have a little tweak and try and provide a better platform for Marcus going into race 2.
Greg.
Well, Ross Stone, how are those fingernails and how are the nerves? It actually didn't pan out too badly. Certainly from Russell's standpoint, good points in the bank.
Yeah, it was a good, solid result. Just what we wanted, actually.
And for Marcus, I know the tyres were a little bit of an issue towards the end there.
Yeah, well, early on, coming down the pit road for his pit stop, he said right front had a little flat, and he wasn't sure how bad it was. So we elected to go with it. So whether that started or not, I don't know.
2 to go, Ross.
Yeah, 2 more races to go. We just got to keep hanging in there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Roland Dane, some more points towards Craig to chase the championship, but still a decent gap for Russell.
Yeah, we did what we could today. Craig did the job completely. All he could do was win the race and see what happened behind him. And as everyone's been saying, it's up to Russell to lose it. We've just got to do the best we can, and Craig did exactly that.
Got to be happy with the way this car's performed also in the later part of this year, looking towards next year as well.
Yeah, I think you could see then the quality of the whole package, the chassis and everything there, with the way it looked after his tyres and everything, etc. in the latter part of the race. Yeah.
Thanks, Roland.
Okay, thank you.
He should be satisfied. Very solid work. As we take a look at the results of race 1, round 13, this is the Big Pond finale, and the VB scoreboard shows us who moved where, and look how many green boxes there are. Radicic and Ellery made 9 positions. And of course, Lowndes, Tander and Ambrose, the podium getters for that one, and plenty of pats on the back for Craig Lowndes. Can that smile get any bigger tomorrow? Maybe, just maybe. And we roll through the entire field. See there, David Brabham narrowly missing the top 10.
And some of the bigger names that plummeted down through the order, and you'll see them shortly. Stephen Richards down in 27th position, and Jason Bright, after what should have been such a promising weekend, down in 31st position. He doesn't even appear on this third page of ours, and so that is great disappointment for what should have been a better outcome.
Absolutely.
And it's all as a result of somehow being released probably out of the pits too early.